to touch. And so speaking with our team, we decided that we would reach out to our very good friends at Silversea to ask if they would be the first cruise line to join us in our series of information sessions. So just before we get started, a couple of housekeeping notes, if we can. I would ask everybody who's joined the meeting to just put themselves on mute, because that way we will all be able to hear Christine as she speaks, Christine's presentation. There is obviously going to be the opportunity for everybody to ask questions, and I would ask you, if you have any questions, to go down to the chat area at the bottom of your screen. You will see that there's a chat icon. If you click on that, you will actually be able to type your question, and we will be able to see it. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll obviously address any questions that people may have. The other thing I just wanted to mention, you may have actually heard it or seen it pop up on your screen. We are recording this session, so you will be able to watch it back again later if you wish to, or you may like to share it with friends or family members. And obviously it's also an opportunity for us to be able to promote it through some of our other marketing avenues. So without further ado, it's my great pleasure to welcome Christine Gardner to the session today. Christine is the New South Wales Sales Manager for Silversea. And we've been working together with her over the past few days to bring this presentation to you. I was speaking to Christine just yesterday and said the lovely thing about today's session is that we have a number of Venetian Society guests with us, so people who have cruised once or more previously with Silversea. And we also have a number of you joining us who've not ever cruised with Silversea before. So I hope you are all very, very excited about what you're about to learn. Silversea is such a wonderful brand. I have to say, my most recent experience of being on or near a Silversea ship, let's be honest, it's been a little while since we've seen ships of any sort in Sydney Harbour, but I had the most stunning day with Christine and with some of her team on board Silver Muse, which was in Sydney Harbour, just going back to the summer of 2019, 2020. And the ship was actually at anchor out in the middle of the harbour that day. So we tended across to the ship and had the most spectacular afternoon on board. So such a pleasure. And those of you who are, well, I think all of us, whether we live in Sydney or we live in any other part of Australia, the harbour is such a beautiful part of our city, and always lovely to be out on the water. So what we're going to do today is kind of a fairly loose question and answer style presentation, I guess. And so I thought we'd kick off with a little bit of more recent background about Silversea. I mean, I think all of us would agree that 2020 was in many ways an unforgettable year in terms of the impact that the pandemic has had, and no less on the cruising industry. But Christine, in some respects, 2020 was a really positive year for Silversea, wasn't it?
It was, and as you mentioned, the harbour was quite busy that day that we got together, a little bit different to now. But thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, Meg. It's really lovely that we're able to share, like you said, some stories that potentially were positive. And for Silversea, that was 2020, which from the flip side of not travelling was that we were able to, we were originally Italian family owned, and Royal Caribbean had previously, in the year previous, had bought 63% of Silversea, and then they actually purchased us 100% in 2020. So it meant that we became fully owned, and what that meant was we were also able to financially build ships. We had the funds there thanks to Royal Caribbean. So we were able to build Silver Moon, who's currently, as we speak, actually sailing in Greece. And we also have Silver Dawn, that is also almost ready for completion to be launched. And we also launched Silver Origin in the Galapagos. So it was quite positive in that sense. Not so much that we weren't sailing, but yeah, quite good in that sense.
And fantastic, Christine. You mentioned that Silver Moon is operational again. She's well, I shouldn't say again. She's just recently been named. You know, had the beautiful naming ceremony. I think it was in Santorini, in the Bay of Santorini. I remember seeing some footage of it. And yes, she's now underway cruising the Greek islands, which is fantastic.
Exactly. So potentially we've got a fleet of 10 that will actually be sailing sooner rather than later. As I mentioned, we've got we'll have a Silver Muse currently who's sailing in Alaska. We have Silver Origin, the brand new ship in the Galapagos, already sailing, and we're about to have another ship sailing around Iceland. So we're getting moving slowly. We have got the fleet, like I said, of 10 small ships. We were doing already the because they're small and limited guests, so only from 388 guests up to 608, and our smallest being Expedition, which is 100 guests, which is Silver Origin. So we were already doing the you know, the social distancing and what have you way back when. So we have a staff to guest ratio of nearly 1:1, but it's very limited. We have very, very large spaces, but we have limited amount of guests on at one time. So yeah, we kind of were a little bit of ahead of the game in that sense. So it's actually fared us very well. But as we talk through today, we'll talk about all the changes that have taken place, because clearly that's quite important to talk about. So, but you know, we're already social distancing pre-COVID. We have all these beautiful experiences where we're fully inclusive. It's incredible value. We'll talk about, you know, what that looks like. Anything from your airfare, the actual cruise fare, all of the transfers, luggage handling, and then we've just introduced as well our Black Lane all-inclusive door-to-door transfer. So we'll actually pick you up from your house, take you to the airport or to the port, and then the same coming home. So it really is that all-inclusive now. So it makes it, you know, really nice to know that you're going to be looked after. It'll give you that really great feeling of inclusion. So, and then once you get on board, of course, you've got your butler. And we talked about it yesterday, about sometimes guests say that, you know, I'm not really into butlers, especially the Australian and New Zealand market. But let me tell you, having that extra pair of hands once you get on board is invaluable. It's, you know, you always hear these lovely little stories that guests always come back with, you know, the reason why I actually loved having the butler. So they're not standing there waiting for direction. They're actually guided by you. And so, yeah, they do lots of things behind the scenes that you don't actually get to see. So, and of course, wife.
Can I share a little story at that point, Christine?
Oh, yes.
Many of the people who've joined us today would know my business partner Hardy Schneider, who is often out and about on tour with our clients, and he was telling me just within the last few days, or reminding me, I should say, of an experience he had on board Silversea. He was cruising by himself on this particular occasion. And he sort of thought to himself, what on earth do I need a butler for? You know, I really am quite capable of taking care of myself. But he talked about this one particular evening, and it must have been maybe the farewell night, because he was getting dressed up for dinner. And he has a bow tie that's not pre-tied. It needs to be tied. And he was having difficulty getting it right, you know, getting it to sit straight. And at that moment, he had a light bulb thought, well, the butler could help me with this. And sure enough, he he contacted the butler, and in he came, and within a couple of moments the bow tie was looking absolutely perfect. So you just never quite know what you might need them for, or when the occasion will arise, but on that occasion he reminded me, the butler was priceless.
I know, right? And we're all going to have those little stories, but even simple things like I would leave my glasses and you'd come back and they'd all be cleaned, and your shoes would be cleaned, and just little things that go on behind the scene. But yeah, but look, it's really important as well, I think, when you're traveling now, especially us being used to working from home, if you want to stay in contact and stay connected as well, having this Wi-Fi for all of our guests. And a similar story, whereas I was in the Arctic on Silver Cloud, and we were actually guided by the expedition team to say, they actually came over on the mic and said, look, please contact all of your family, let them know you're having a great time, let them know that you're safe and well, but we will be out of range for the next few days. And you know how that sounds horrifying? It sounds horrific, but in actual fact, when you live that for a few days with not being connected, of course we had emergency connections and things like that, but just being disconnected and really being in the moment, in that top of the world, really, that's the reason why we had no Wi-Fi, was really amazing. So yeah, I think you're right, there's always something that is a little story that you can talk about. I think one of the highlights for me as well was having the different choice on such a small ship, having the choice of, on Silver Moon, for example, we have up to 8 restaurants, including your in-room dining. If you choose that, it's formal night, for example, on Classic, which we have once every 7 days, if you're just not interested in going, or you just don't feel like it, you've had a big day on shore and you just want to have some downtime, you can actually have this beautiful silver service meal from any of the restaurants on board brought to you into your suite. Wow. So, it's just the simple things. It's your holiday, it's your vacation, it's your time, and you can manage that how you like. So, but, one of my favourite, we talk about when we get on the ship, you're met by these beautiful smiling faces, which now unfortunately are behind masks for the moment. And we'll talk a little bit more about, what it will look like moving forward. But then you step on board and you're handed a glass of champagne. And a lot of that feeling, if you've travelled with Silversea before, it's like you're coming home. And that's a feeling that you can't buy. It's a feeling that you get from travelling with Silversea, of meeting staff, by meeting other clients on board that you may have met that become your friends, that you've travelled these experiences with. And then you just go out to La Terrazza is my favourite restaurant to actually go and sit, because you can sit at the aft of the ship and you're sitting, you're looking out to sea usually, because you're in port, waiting for your suite to be available. And you have this beautiful Italian fresh pasta, or you can have whatever you like from that menu. And then you go to your suite, you're met by the butler, and before you know it, you're whisked off, the ship is sailing, and then you're planning the rest of your evening. So it's quite seamless. There's so much to do. If you're a foodie, particularly if you like cooking, and I'm sure a lot of people have got into cooking a little bit more now that they've been home, we've got a new program on Silver Moon, and also will be on Silver Dawn, which is the SALT program. And what that means is a SALT kitchen. So you actually go and go to local markets. So in Greece, you see pictures now of our guests going with the chefs and actually picking up fresh ingredients, and then coming back and actually at those benches cooking the meal of that region. And then we've got a SALT bar that you go to, and there's 6 different wines from that particular region itself, Greek wines that you can choose from, or these gorgeous cocktails, or that are all relevant to the destination. So once you're immersed into it, not only through the lovely lectures and actually the shore excursions, but on board as well, you're getting that the taste and the feel and the touch, and that really does add to it.
Fantastic. Now, Christine, before we move into the cabin types and so on, perhaps we should just explain to people that Silversea offers 2 very different styles of cruising. You've talked about cruising in the Greek islands and down closer to home in Australian waters, but you also talked about the Arctic. And so you have 2 different styles of cruising and 2 very different types of ship, don't you, in the classic style of cruising, and then also your expedition.
Look, we're very fortunate to have both styles, because if you're a classic style traveller, but you really want to go to Antarctica, then as that's your bucket list that you want to tick off, then you can travel with us to Antarctica. If you prefer, you're not really the classic style, you've been to most of the ports, you really want to dig and delve and have a bit of adventure and get onto a Zodiac, which I might add, if you can get in and out of a car, you can get in and out of a Zodiac. That's sort of our analogy. Then, yeah, we've got that opportunity. So the expedition is, as I mentioned, with Silver Origin, it's 100 guests, up to 254 guests on Silver Cloud. So, and we're about to convert Silver Wind across, but there's some great slides coming up actually that I've got of Silver Explorer here in Australia, up in the Kimberley. So going to the Kimberley as an expedition, I mean, there's no better way to see that area, right? Because you can get into all those little nooks and crannies of those areas. Because we don't go to ports when we go into expedition. It's all, it's all ad hoc.
Yeah, fantastic.
So when we go on to the suites, like these suites, I can tell you now, we don't have any indoor inside cabins or anything like that. It's all about having the ocean view. If you're not worried about the suite, it's more about the destination you're going to, then we have our lead-in suites, which are our view suites, and then we start up to our veranda suites. And then this is great, especially our Silver Suite for multi-generational travel. So if you happen to be in this particular suite, and then you can have the family stay in other suites, and you can have them come in here for dinner of an evening, for example, and meet every day and catch up on the day. So it's a nice way to do it, and it's quite private. So this is lovely. I mean, the butler, when you arrive in your suite, he'll actually bring a platter of different amenities to you, and you get to choose whether you like Bulgari or Ferragamo or Sika, which is the non-allergenic brand, and then that will keep coming. One of my favourite things is having that bath there. Is they have Bulgari have these. It's like a massive tea bag of bath salts, and you actually have that brought and have a bath with that in it, and it's just. And then you can head off to the bar and for dinner, or have in-room dining, as I mentioned. So yes, there's some beautiful spaces to be. But I think this is probably one of your favourite spaces, Meg. You've talked about just in the evening having a drink, and we have canapes here of an evening, or if you want to whale watch or anything like that during the day, you can just sit here and watch the world go by on a sea day.
Absolutely beautiful at the top of the ship, and obviously right at the front as well. So yeah,
same view as the captain, just above the bridge.
Indeed.
yeah. So this is the what we were mentioning about the classics. So it's more the traditional locations, and then of course we have the expedition, and the entertainment on expedition turns into lectures. So it's more about getting that educated view of the destination. And talking about destinations, look at this. We just travel to all capacities of the world, all 7 continents, over 900 destinations. So I'm sure there's a lot of destinations that potentially you may have been before, but you can still go back to those. I think it's nice to always go back and have a revisit, especially now. This is a gentle reminder, and it's okay, but there's lots to choose from. So and look, doing something like a Grand Voyage, I have to showcase this because it's so easy just to get on the ship and then just go from port to port. I mean, look at this. You can do sectors of this. We have voyages that you can do a 7-day and have a break and then do another 7-day. But if you're going to take the time to go over to Europe now, getting on in Lisbon here and then spending my little meandering around there, I just could not wait to get to Sardinia there, where I know it's not in the best place at the moment, but just traveling through there and tasting the different foods and the cultural element. And our shore excursions, we have now complimentary 1 shore excursion per day per person, and there's a list of quite a few to choose from. But if you are going to this region and there's particular something in particular you want to see, you want a private tour of that area, then you can do that. Now, what does that look like currently? That's probably a question that everyone's wondering. is just by looking at the feedback that's coming back from Greece, for example. The guests we are making it a bubble so that we have where we are doing the shore excursion. So we currently, as Meg and I mentioned, have the ship in Greece. We're going to a lot of areas that there is no one else. So when we go to a particular spot, there is just Silversea guests, and that driver or whoever it is that's taking that tour have all had their testing, have all been vaccinated. They're things that we have done behind the scenes to make sure the guests are safe, because our guests, the crew on board are all vaccinated. Our guests at this stage have all been asked to be vaccinated to get on board those ships, and we'll talk more about this healthy return to sail as we go along. But I just want to showcase these wonderful grand voyages. This is another one that is just amazing to see, all these wonderful destinations, especially down there, heading up through Madagascar and up to Mahe. And then, of course, finishing off there in the Suez Canal in Greece. So then you could head off and do something wonderful. The great thing about this is when we do grand voyages, whatever, we include so much into it. So we include the airfares, we include a pre and post accommodation, we have onboard credit. So if you do get any onboard credit with Silversea, we do have beautiful day spas, because we talk about all inclusive, but we have wonderful day spas, and of course you can use it at the gift shop as well. So, and one of the things we laughed about, Meg, was the free laundry. A lot of our guests actually keep going and going and going to get to that free laundry, because we do have laundries on board, but the free laundry is when you reach a certain milestone as a Venetian Society guest, or if you travel as a grand voyage, and that's where the butler will take your laundry away and come back and it's all done for you. So that's one of those little things that you can aim for. But some of the destinations we'll just flick through. Like I mentioned, we've got these Spirit, Cloud, Whisper and Moon that are actually going into this. Just stunning. Quite a few. We've got the Persian Gulf exploration. We've got a little bit of expedition. So if you see it in red, that means it's an expedition. If it's in the pale green, that's a classic voyage. So you can see there a little bit of the Arabian Peninsula through there in the Red Sea. So these are all destinations that sometimes, they're definitely those bucket list destinations. Our home, because we are Italian, we still have an Italian CEO and a COO, so we still really are heavily entrenched as that Italian culture, especially on board with our beautiful food, which I'll talk about more. But in the Mediterranean, which is our home, so we've got 4 ships that are travelling here, and we have got Silver Cloud that's going to be doing some Mediterranean. And that, when you talk to the destination team and they talk about what they're going to be doing, it's quite unique and quite different. So when you do go into a port that traditionally would be classic, they've looked at things that are different, so that it brings out it's more adventurous side of that destination. A lot of history, of course, over in these regions. So you can just see, and that's nice that you're able to add a little, some of these you can do as a back-to-back as well. You don't necessarily just have to do a 9-day or a 10-day. But some of the ports, a lot of new ports, we're always looking for somewhere different. There's my Sardinia again opened up. I'm desperate to get there. So we all got these, and Iceland, I'm desperate to get to Iceland. So we've all got these bucket lists that we want to tick off once we get moving. And the British Isles, this is another one, quite popular. And Northern Europe actually has had a significant amount of interest in the last few months actually. So the Baltic cruises, because we can get right there with the smaller ships into these smaller ports, particularly with our classic. But then, of course, with our as I mentioned, with our expedition, we can actually get some of these destinations. So we've actually, I've been on Silver Cloud into some of these British Isle destinations, and just amazing, especially meeting locals. And you meet the locals and they talk about the flora and fauna, and just, looking for eider ducks and all these things that you just would never have dreamed of doing, and the stories that go behind that. So the history in the stories, so it's quite amazing. But then you have your more traditional Northern Europe voyages as well. And this is just showcasing a few of them. We've got beautiful brochures that have a lot of lovely maps and a lot of different destinations in there. This is my last voyage. Talking about last voyages, this is my last voyage that I did. I did it I did Japan up to Alaska. And the ship's now back in Alaska now. Silver Muse is actually in Alaska now. So I was looking at some photos the other day with a big smile on my face, just remembering, you know, being on her. I was going to put some photos of me in there, and I thought, look, you know, I didn't want to sort of show off too much, but I'm sure that, you know, you've probably got quite a few people online that have been to this region. What we've tried to do, sometimes 7 days just is not enough though, right? So we've got one voyage here, route B there and route C, that you can actually join together and make it 14 days, but you're actually not going into the same ports, you know, and I think that that's important to think of things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a part of the world that, despite being, you know, the ports being quite close together, they're all quite unique, and have their own history, their own, you know, sort of cultural differences and so on. And that, you know, that's completely separate to the incredible glaciers, and each of the glaciers is vastly different to the next as well. So it's a great suggestion there to actually back-to-back cruises, and that way have a completely immersive experience all the time.
I think so. And like I said, you're just not planning on going, you know, once you tick that off, then you can move on. We do some really great pre and post as well. And I think that's where yourself, Meg, and the team, with your knowledge and your experience, can actually do that. You can add the train, you can add a Denali, you can add all these wonderful things to that. So it becomes that really holistic immersion of that destination. And I think that's really important. And I think that's where we're going. I think that's now, with that pent-up want to travel, the immersion of the actual region is really important now.
Absolutely.
But this would have to be definitely, I've been to both poles. I really highly recommend, if you've been to Antarctica, and even though that was a one-off bucket list tick item, definitely would recommend the Arctic. You know, it's not just about the polar bears. It's, of course, that's why a lot of people travel here. But I find that, you know, some of these, we've got quite heavy involvement here, especially this one that's more across to the Greenland region. You've got the Inuit community here. We're learning about the rich culture and how they survive, and a lot of changes happening for them as well, with, you know, with the ice actually getting less and less. There's companies moving in now that want to actually start to mine and what have you. So there's a lot going on, and I think to get there and actually see it in its raw state now is definitely what we need to do, because it does bring home how important this region is, especially to the people that live here. Also, there's a lot of little ports in here that look down the track I just don't think we're going to be able to access. So I think it's a really important area to visit. The voyage that goes up from Tromsø to Longyearbyen, this is great. And this is the region I was talking about, you know, sitting up here and not having Wi-Fi for a few days. But the ultimate, if you're only going once, you have to do the Northwest Passage. I was reading some history, reading up a book, you know, because we have these wonderful reading lists, and just reading the urgency for a lot of when they were discovering these regions, and you know who got there first, who went there second, who survived, and actually reading through that is just, it just makes it so much better, and so it just urges you wanting to go there. And puffins, I mean, I remember seeing puffins that are much smaller than what I envisaged. But like I said, it's not just about polar bears; it's about Arctic foxes, it's about walrus, it's about reindeers. It's, you know, it's yeah, it's quite amazing. And to see these guys all together, they're quite amazing to watch. Of course, we stay back. We have to stay back from the wildlife, but and of course the Antarctica bucket list, yeah, if you've been thinking of it and dreaming of it, just do it. It's one of those places that you will never regret going. It's we have quite a few options to get there. We have, if you're worried about the Drake Passage, because obviously the Drake Passage is, you know, I guess one of the fears that people may have with this. It's 40% of the actual crossing, and we're not under any. We have 48 hours to cross it, and it only takes 24. So we're not under any pressure. If we go at the best time, the captain decides if it's a great time to go now, we'll head. If not, we'll just wait a little bit longer until it's safer to go. But if you really don't want to go across there, we do have another option. So, but look at this. This is, you know, heading into South Georgia, during the South Georgia Falkland Island and then the peninsula. This is where you get to see up to 500,000 king penguins at one time. It's like wildlife on steroids. But that middle one, that Antarctica bridge, that's the one where we're actually, it's a new for Silversea, and the unique point for us there is we have a business class airfare included that takes you across to King George Island. You will get your complimentary jacket, which you also get in the Arctic as well, and then you get on to Silver Explorer and then see the peninsula without having to cross the Drake. So we've got quite a few options there, but if you're only going once, I absolutely recommend the Port Stanley and South Georgia as a destination. And when you see your first iceberg, it's very exciting, and then they're just everywhere, as big as buildings, going through the Lemaire Channel and what have you. It's just fantastic. And that's the wonderful Antarctica bridge. So you still get that thrill of being in Antarctica, but you just don't get the crossing happening.
It would actually be quite interesting to fly across, because it would give you that completely different perspective of Antarctica as a continent too. You know, when you travel by sea, you're only seeing it from, you know, from sea level, and perhaps if, you know, on some of the landings you'll hike up onto a ridge line and you know, have a, you know, perhaps a little bit more perspective. But to fly in would be quite unique, and something very special, you know, particularly even for people who've perhaps been to Antarctica before and are looking to go again. It might be a great opportunity to mix things up and do it differently this time.
Actually, it's a really good point, Meg, because we have had that inquiry where the guest has travelled to Antarctica some time ago. They want to go back, but they want to do it a little bit differently. What can I do that changes it up? And so, yeah, it's a really good point that you make, and actually flying across. We've got two BAE 146 aircraft. They're the ones that have the engines over the top, and they'll take the guests across, and and the experience actually starts before you even fly, because not only have you flown into Chile, you then have the charter flight down to Punta Arenas, and then you're met by the team, you're staying in the hotel. That little community that gets created on board the ships, because they are a small size, is already happening, and then you go and have that experience again. It's just incredible. And the photography from that angle, you're right, amazing. And I just thought I'd include, being in that South America, we have so many voyages through that region, but Galapagos, this is another one where you've got these, you know, these endemic wildlife and the history, the Darwin history, for example, that is also in this region. So you can do these back to back. That would be my ideal. Silver Origin is a stunning ship, 100 guests, just beautiful. She's been purpose built for this region, just the access we supply. You know, the snorkels, which you actually get to take home, you know, all these extra things that come into it. It's quite amazing. So definitely a region to consider as well. So will we come closer to home? What do you think?
It's because this is perhaps the first opportunity that people are going to be able to cruise again with Silversea, is in our own backyard, so to speak. Oh my goodness, we cannot wait. We're just so excited by the concept of seeing ships back in Australian waters, and we've already sort of talked amongst the team about the day that the first ship returns to Sydney Harbour. Let's hope it's a Silversea ship, because that will be a day of huge celebration.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I think we'll all be there. We'll just be. I think everyone will just be cheering that we have the opportunity to travel again. Yeah, I agree. So, you know, we have a new release of sailings. We've had sailings up until, you know, we've had to obviously cancel year upon year, but we've got sailings that potentially we're looking at 2022, early part of 2022, where our managing director has having these, you know, federal and local government discussions that have been ongoing. Look, at the moment, I guess those discussions probably are not looking as positive, but in saying that, I think a lot can change. My colleagues that I speak to in the US, for example, they just said, you know, within a 6-month window, things just happened and just changed so quickly. So with getting people moving again. So I think that's what keeps me going. So you're right, to see a ship here would be fantastic. So we have Kimberley, and we also have with our expedition, as I talked about before, and then we also have our classic. So for the Kimberley, we have at the moment our sailings go out to Madagascar Island, which is in Indonesia. Now, if we can't do that, if our biosecurity is closed, but we're allowed to bring a ship in, then we will bring that in. We're being very fluid. If we can't get across to New Zealand, we're bringing that in, and we'll do some local voyages. We've just got to get a ship in here. So for the Kimberley, for example, that one there, that's new, that 10-day one where we're going Darwin, because we've put that in place thinking if we can't get into the Northern Territory, so if we have limitations getting in, at least we can hug the coast and we can keep it quite contained. So we're looking at changing along the way as we need to. But this is what you're going to see in the Kimberley. It's all tidal. This is Montgomery Reef, where we take our guests out. And one important point is all our guests get to experience this at once. We have 12 Zodiacs on board Silver Explorer, and she's a 144 guest ship. Now, she will be, we're not running all of our ships at full capacity. We're making sure that there's some suites still available if need be, because we have obviously extra medical staff on board, and if we need to accommodate any cases on board, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But when we look at beautiful destinations like the Kimberley, to have everyone off the ship at one time having this experience and then going back to the ship, showing off photos, talking about the fabulous things they saw, that's a community that gets created. That's travel, right? We're talking about that. So yeah, it's a stunning destination. I don't know if you've been up that way, Meg.
I have, not by sea, to be honest. People may know I'm a West Australian girl, so I spent a lot of my childhood travelling up into the northern parts of Western Australia on family camping holidays and so on. And yes, I have seen a lot of the Kimberley, but by road. So it would be fabulous to go up and see it from that other perspective, you know, to travel by road as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because I think to see it in a four-wheel drive or to see it on land, and then to see it on the ocean, because by sea, you've got that tidal movement, up to 8 to 10 metres of tidal movement a day. So, you know, and doing hikes up to these beautiful art galleries to see the Wodgina and Bradshaw art, and have that perspective come through, you know, from the local Indigenous community and smoking ceremonies and what have you. So I think both ways of seeing this region, our own backyard, is absolutely perfect. And so, yes, I don't think a lot of people think of seeing it so much from the ocean, because yeah, it is those beautiful tidal movements, and going through horizontal falls, for example, or seeing the bungle bungles. I mean, the bungle bungles were only discovered by white man back in the 80s. So, you know, of course they've been there for many thousands of years. But yeah, I think now to actually see that, and we offer a light plane over the bungle bungles as included, or an Ord River cruise. So there's so much to see, so much to see.
Absolutely. And
then we're heading over to Asia. So just bringing that close to home, obviously we have sailings. We were very, very, very popular in this region prior in 2019. Moon, Muse, Whisper and Spirit will be in this region. So we've got quite a lot of activity happening there. Japan, I mean, we've just all sat and watched the Olympics, and we didn't see a lot of Japan, unfortunately, but I know even that voyage that I took over to Alaska, I went through these little regions, you know, and just culturally, again, so protected and so rich. And I just included a little picture that I took, you know, just the beautiful artwork on top of the drains, you know, these little red, just so gorgeous, you know, and packaging and their food, and yeah, just beautiful. So if you haven't been to Japan, I highly recommend it. Very easy to get around, and I'm sure yeah, I'm sure, Meg, that you would have some great places to offer pre and post as well here.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How good does this look? Especially when we're sitting in winter. So yeah, these regions we go to with Silver Explorer, because she's going to be our ship here in Australia. She will be unfortunately leaving the fleet at the end of 23. So we will be looking at, hopefully we'll look at getting some additional expedition ships, but she will go back mainly because we've just refit her with for this region in particular with kayaks, and again, that's all included. So whether you're in the Arctic or whether you're in Antarctica, or if you're in the South Pacific, we don't do it in Kimberley for the snapping handbags, but we have this opportunity to really get close to these regions. And some of these destinations might seem I guess too familiar sometimes, and we dismiss them, but when you go into these regions and you see the cultural element here, where this is not just put on for us as a tourist, this is how they live on a daily basis. And when you talk to we had this is our wild expedition itineraries, and when you talk to the expedition team that go through here, and they talk about the this is the only place you can find this particular plant, or the nesting for this particular bird. And I know that sometimes, if you're a birder, that's exciting. Sometimes if you're not, it's not so much. But let me tell you, once you get off, I just can't tell you how involved you get and excited you get. But the photography element is great as well. And you can see as much above that beautiful waterline as you can underneath. So for snorkeling, what have you. And sometimes we'll sit out with the Zodiacs and do snorkeling. If you're not up to that, that's okay. You can still sit on the ship and purely enjoy, that destination just as it is.
Mm-hmm. So people, we have touched briefly on Silver Moon returning to sail in Greece, but people may very well have questions about what life on board is going to look like when the ships return, the full fleet of ships return to sail, and particularly down here in Australian waters or closer to home. So obviously a huge amount of work has been put in behind the scenes on a global level to research very best protocols and so on. Can you talk us through what that looks like for Silversea?
Yeah. So we, Silversea, talking about Silver Moon in Greece, for example, because that's an active, working ship. Our CEO actually went out to past guests and said, these are all the things that we're doing, because Royal Caribbean obviously looking at what they're doing for the larger fleet, but also for all the brands, including Silversea. And there was a checklist, I think, if I recall, it's 72 different checklists of amazing behind the scene things that were done. And I think one of them, Meg, is to do with the air conditioning. So we actually have a video, and I mentioned to you, it's a little bit on the dry side because it's about engineering, but it's an important video because you have that link. So if anyone does want that, Meg, please share, because it goes to really in depth of what we've done on board. So the guests wanted our clearly our staff on board to be vaccinated, and that has happened. The guests that are travelling are required to be vaccinated. Here in Australia, we didn't really mandate that initially because we didn't know when we were going to start sailing, because we didn't actually have the vaccination roll out like the US and like Europe. So, but that's changing here now. The guests do need to present with a negative COVID test, but then when we actually, the embarkation process, we will be retesting, and it will be the PCR testing, and temperatures will be taken, and then guests will then be allowed on board as long as they've got all of their documentation, and that will be done by medical staff, so it'll be all quite seamless. And then on board, guests will be getting, at the moment on Silver Moon, have been having their temperatures checked every day. They also mid-voyage have another PCR, which is we haven't got those here, but I believe it's I'm not sure whether it's a tongue thing or whether it's a prick on the finger. I'm not sure exactly which PCR it is. And then just prior to leaving, you also have another one, so that then the guests can travel wherever they want, and they can honestly say they have a negative test with them. So these are all the things that the CEO was asking what as a guest would like on board. So mask wearing, of course, physical distancing on different areas of the ship, physical distancing and what have you. So yeah, it's been a big process. And as I mentioned earlier, the ship's actually not going to be going as 100%. So we've got medical facilities that have been upgraded on board. We have additional medical staff on board. Sanitation has obviously been lifted. So there's quite a significant amount that's gone on behind the scenes, as you mentioned, Meg.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I think it's one of those things that people, not only from a health and safety perspective, will be interested to know, but perhaps also to appreciate what things will look like. And I think you mentioned there will potentially be some social distancing, but yeah, really, in many respects, the experience of cruising that people would have known previously will be very much the same, because by the time everybody is on board, we all have confidence that it's only those people who are well that are actually on board, if you know what I mean. So there are lots of checks and balances that will be completed by that point to give everybody confidence that they can sail with confidence.
Yes, that's right. And we have plans in place. Obviously, each port we go to, all those sort of things, if there is a case, that we have the protocols to be able to, move forward with that. We have these cruise with confidence programs. If, guests, for example, if they get to the point where they get there and for some reason, the medical it's changed within that group, for example, that are travelling and they need to leave, we will actually make sure they get home safely and things like that. We'll actually repatriate at our cost. So yeah, so there's quite a few policies that have been put in place. In saying that, we have policies in place at the moment that, if a guest is, if a client that on here says, well, I'd like to go to the Kimberley, but what if they shut the border? Then of course Silversea will take care of that. The guests have opportunity of, if Silversea cancels a voyage, that there's refunds in place, and there's also future cruise credits offered as well. But at the moment, when we're looking at next year, which we've just got to change our mindset on, I guess, is they're actually cruises are going. They will be going come next year. So, knowing that we've got all these, as you said, checks and balances in place, if you're confident to go, and we're getting so much inquiry for next year, the latter part of next year, and also the following 2 years, we just released our 23-24, and it's just amazing the opportunities that's opened up there, where guests are really confident that we'll be travelling by then. And we even have some guests that are able to go and join the Greek voyages now. They're choosing not to come back in a hurry, of course, because they can't get back in, but that's their decision. That they have family there, they're going to spend some time there, they have the dual passports, and they're going to enjoy. So fully vaccinated, and they're making that decision. So you're right, there's a lot of checks and balances before you get on the ship.
I think that's a really important point that you make about the fact that you've released your 23 and 24 seasons already. In some respects, it seems like such a long time away, and it's a little difficult to get our heads around thinking that far forward. But perhaps something that we really do need to consider much more seriously at the moment, because it's not just about the fact that some Australians, as you say, qualify to be to be heading off overseas and travelling and cruising again, but the fact that in the Northern Hemisphere, in large parts, people really are on the move again. So whether it's guests from North America or from the UK or parts of Europe, these people are all, they are already fully vaccinated. The airlines are flying, in many cases quite normally. There are reciprocal agreements between countries, so people have absolute freedom to move about, and they are, of course, therefore not only travelling but also planning the next trip and the next trip and the next trip. So it's great to see the booking with confidence protocols you have, because it means that people here in Australia, although we still have to get our heads around that border finally opening and us being able to take the passports out of the safe and know that we can use them again. But we don't want to get to that point and then suddenly find that the trips we've had on our bucket list for a long time, or, places that we wanted to visit, are already fully booked, and we would have to wait even longer. So I think there's a really strong message there that if you see something you like, let's face it, we all have big gaps in our calendars at the moment. Slot something in, not only because that means you have a booking in place, but also, it would be so wonderful for all of us to be able to get back to that point where we are excited again about the things we have planned and the trips that we have lined up. We've so many of us, unfortunately, have done nothing but have holidays, holiday plans cancelled. So wonderful to get back to that point of being able to slot things into the calendar, but knowing that whatever happens, there's that backing from Silversea that there'll be refunds forthcoming should trips have to be cancelled closer to the time.
I think you're right. The availability is getting less and less, and that's not just me saying that because I work at Silversea. It really, truly is. The availability is getting less and less. But our normal policy, regardless of all the COVID programs and protections, our normal policy is you can book and pay a deposit, and then your final payment isn't due until 150 days prior. So you've got a long time, to make that decision. And if you decide that you're not up to it, then that's okay as well. So even, you're right, you're going through where you want to travel and putting those bookings in now is definitely the way to go. And another point that I personally would like to make as well is booking through yourself as a travel agent. You are going to be on top of every what country allows vaccinations. It's a different world now. It's not about just if you're vaccinated. Countries actually want to know which vaccination you have. So and that's changing. Those rules and regulations are changing daily, weekly. So I think that I don't envy you, Meg, having to keep on top of all those policies, from around the world. But I think that's a lot of reading to do. But I think that's a positive on your side. But when you're right, we've got these beautiful brochures. We have online brochures, and we also have some hard copy brochures as well. But these are gorgeous. Just to if you can't imagine it until you actually have it in front of you and start flicking through, a bit like a coffee table book. You can pick it up and put it down, dog ear it, and so we have got some of these available. So if you do, I would love to see some of your the beautiful people online tonight actually have some of these at home.
Yeah, so what we're going to do, we will certainly share the digital versions of the brochures with everybody after today's session. And then anybody who would like physical copies, by all means, all they need to do is ask us to send those out, obviously share their address details with us, and we'll get them out into the mail.
I just wanted to showcase something before I show a couple of special offers. But have a look at this. This is our world cruise for 2024. It's San Fran to San Fran. So there's a lot of close to home there, close to home in Australia, but and it includes Alaska as well. Like I said, why not go for all of it rather than and we've got a couple of suites available. Normally, what happens, our guests actually book from year to year. So it just got released our last couple of weeks. So yeah, it's some beautiful. It's called the Far East. And yeah, it's from San Fran to San Fran, as you just saw there. So yeah, look, just that is true bucket list bucket list stuff. But you can see here 133 days from January 2024, so we should be all good to go by then. Yes, and that's again all inclusive. We include the flights and all those wonderful things I talked about. And if you choose in your minibar to have a gin and tonic every afternoon, you actually get a full bottle of gin put into your minibar, and plus if you wanted to have a champagne as well, it's all included. So and we have events along the way as well, so special events that guests actually get to enjoy that have been chosen and worked just for them that are on the voyage. So something to end on, but I just wanted to just give a couple of bonus offers. We have some booking bonuses up 20% off that expire in August. We also have some great solo travel affairs sitting at that 25%. So I think there's up to about 140 sailings there, and there's over 400 sailings that have up to 20% as well. Our Kimberley for 2022, we still have some availability just in case anyone's wondering, and we've got the 10% off there if they book and pay fully by August 31. But I guess the best way to convince you is to have an event certificate, which is tonight, we're calling an event, with $600 saving certificate, which we've extended to the end of August. So from tonight, any bookings that are booked just through Cruise Express, and the contact details are on the slide, you can add that to if you want that 10% saving, that's included. So it just goes on and on and on. So there's certainly no excuse. If you've been thinking about going to the Kimberley as an example, or Arctic or Antarctica or Greece or World Cruise, then yeah, please don't hesitate to contact Meg and the team.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Christine. We really, really appreciate the extra special offer, and particularly as I think you've made an exception in extending that through right until the end of the month. So thank you very much.
That's all right.
So we might open up to questions. I think there may have been one or two whilst we've been talking. Just going to have a little look at that whilst I perhaps throw the first question your way. I mentioned earlier about Hardy getting some assistance with tying his bow tie, and I don't want to scare people off into thinking that Silversea, you have to dress for dinner every night. Perhaps you can talk through the the lifestyle that people can expect on board. How formal or informal would people expect it to be?
It's a really good point, because you don't want to turn up with a suitcase full of after five when you don't need it. But we actually do have, we give you a what to bring and a what to wear sort of inclusions. But, for classic and also for expedition, for classic mainly, it's after 6 p.m. Gentlemen just wear a jacket. Not just a jacket, but are required to wear a jacket. And there is one per 7-day formal night, and that generally I had a simple black dress that, one of those ones that roll up and you can put in your bag, and I just had that with some quite comfortable shoes. And if I chose to wear that to the formal night, I would go. But there was a formal night on one of the voyages I went on, Silver Muse, where I just didn't feel like it, and all it was I just went up to the pool area, and they have a wonderful pizza, the best pizza outside of Italy. And we sat there. It was cold. We had the blanket over our knees. We had the heater on. I had my puffer jacket on, and we had pizza for dinner and beautiful red wine. And so you can do that as well. Or if you choose, like I said before, if you want to just spend an evening in your suite and have dinner in the evening in the suite, then you can have that from any of the 8 restaurants on board. But during the day, it was very smart casual. It was, depending on the region where you are, but just what you would wear, I guess, at a resort. And in the expedition side of it, I would wear, maybe my hiking boots with a pair of jeans and a t-shirt with a jumper on, and then my jacket. So it's very casual. And then in the evening, I might put on some much better shoes than my hiking shoes, and then just add a a nicer top. So it's quite relaxed, but the gentlemen really are just required to wear a jacket, and a lot of gentlemen just had a simple linen jacket. It wasn't over the top at all. But if you choose to dress up, then you absolutely can for the formal night.
Fabulous. That's great. There are a couple of questions along the lines of whether it's possible to just do sectors of voyages.
Yeah.
So if you can talk to that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have particular sectors that you would like to do, so for example, we call them grand voyages. So if you are looking at, say, a grand voyage, which can be a sector of a world cruise, for example, we have the one I showed you at the beginning, where I said to you, you could do one section of that. You can. We've designed it so that they go back to back to back, because we're finding that, especially now, like you were saying before, that it's palpable, almost the pulse of wanting to travel. You can feel it, the vibration of wanting to get out and start moving. So we've found that more and more of our clients are actually wanting to do longer voyages. So hence why we've designed them a little bit more like that. So yeah, you can. That's half the fun, isn't it? Sitting down and seeing, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? You might even find a voyage, and then you could ask Meg and the team, I'd like to do something in between and then join another voyage. You could do that. But when we do back-to-back voyages, we actually do offer further savings, another 5% savings. So yeah, there's all these wonderful things that you can do. You can do as much or as little as you like.
Fantastic. And to the point of securing a booking, is there a sort of a standard rule in terms of the amount of deposit that people would be required to pay up front, particularly if we're talking about cruises that are not departing until 2023 or even beyond then?
We've got for 2021, for 2022 departures, we currently have a 15% deposit, which is normally 25%. But if you're looking at a 23 or 24, we're also extending that 15% deposit out until any booking prior to 30 November. Right. So you've got a little bit of time up your sleeve. But yeah, look, our normal policy is that you pay the deposit and then the final payment is 151 days out. So yeah, but often we've got these, like the 10% early booking on Kimberley at the moment. As well, I had a slide that said up to 20%. Well, I know for a fact on the Kimberley it's 10%. Now that does need to be booked and paid in full by the 31st of August to receive that early booking bonus. However, if you say, well, look, I don't really want to pay all my money up front now, that's okay. It just means that you will get that that booking without that 10% EBB. That's all. So
it sounds like you're very flexible and have many options for people to consider and to find then something that suits their particular situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. There was one question about travel insurance, which is not specific to Silversea. So I think we might take that offline. We've made a note of who has asked what questions. So just a question about whether or not travel insurance is now available to purchase. So yes, it absolutely is, but we'll take that question offline and answer your question. I think it was JP that asked that question. We'll certainly be in touch with you to talk through those details. So any closing words, Christine? Was there anything more that you wanted to say? I'm just conscious of time. We're just after 5 o'clock. Yeah, anything else that you just wanted to add?
Oh, I just wanted to add that, work out what traveling is to you. It comes back to being connected. It comes back to finding the right product for you. It's all about being comfortable, but I can highly recommend traveling with Silversea, because even though we talk about being luxury, the ultra luxury product, what's luxury to you? So we will have something on board that will be luxury to you. For me, luxury is time. Well, I've had plenty of that, right? But it's time to travel. It's time to spend with my husband on board the ship. It's time to travel. So whatever suits you and whatever luxury is to you, we would love to see you on board Silversea. Just try one of the close to home if you're not sure, or if you have travelled with us before, talk to your friends, tell them to come because the benefit of having that small ship environment and all of the things that we've done to make it safe and fabulous will absolutely be, you won't regret it.
I think there's something to be said for cruising with family and or friends. You know, an experience shared is somehow, you know, so much better experience, isn't it? And that photograph you've put up on the screen is just a perfect way to finish, I think. Yes, won't it be lovely to get back to traveling and especially to cruising? It's such a relaxing way of seeing the world. I'm sure I speak for everybody who's on the call today that none of us can wait until that day. So in closing, Christine, thank you so very much for your time. It's been such an interesting hour. My goodness, if you can't find a Silversea itinerary to suit you, then you either have been everywhere already or you maybe need to take a second look. So yes, thank you again for your time. Thank you also for the wonderful offers that you've extended to our clients. And as you mentioned, our team would be more than happy to talk to anybody about specific questions you may have about any of the itineraries that you'd like more information on. I did mention we will, after the call, be sharing a digital link to some of the brochures that Christine has showcased today. And if you would like hard copies of any of those brochures, we'll be more than happy to send them out to you. Stay tuned for upcoming sessions. We are planning our second information session in just 2 weeks from today, and we'll be in touch with more information about that. I would also encourage you, if there are particular topics you would like us to cover in future sessions, please make contact with us. Probably the best way is to send a message to Kathy, who has been instrumental in making everything happen for today. Thank you, Kathy, for your technical expertise.
Pleasure.
But yes, if there is anything you would like us to perhaps schedule for a future session, send those ideas and thoughts through to events@cruiseexpress.com.au, and we'll definitely take those on board. And I think that really sort of wraps things up. I hope you all have a fabulous evening. No matter where you are in Australia, I know we've had people joining us today from, pretty much up and down the entire eastern seaboard. Many of us are in lockdown. Some of you, thankfully, have a few freedoms at the moment. So enjoy those, and please, everybody, stay safe, stay well. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.